Have you ever wondered why the world has seasons that cycle through? Why does spring burst with life, while winter is cold and desolate? Science can explain it through the Earth's orbit around the sun, but thousands of years ago, the ancient Greeks told a different story, a story full of emotion about motherhood, loss, and love that transcends death. This is the story of Persephone, a girl with the pure beauty of nature, whose fate was tragically torn between two worlds, light and darkness. Persephone, the beloved daughter of Demeter, the goddess of agriculture, grew up among fields full of flowers, where every living thing celebrated life. She was the symbol of beginnings, of endless spring. However, the brilliance of light sometimes attracts the darkness. Deep beneath the earth, in the realm of death and stillness, Hades, the lord of the underworld, saw Persephone, and from that moment, her fate was irrevocably changed. One fateful day, the earth cracked open, and Persephone disappeared from the world of humans, leaving Demeter in unbearable pain. The loss of a mother not only shattered her heart, but caused the whole world to wither and freeze. And so, from innocent smiles to desperate tears, Persephone's journey became an immortal symbol of the cycle of life, birth, death, and rebirth. Let me take you on that journey. Listen to the story of Persephone, the muse of light and darkness. When the world was still young, when the trees whispered ancient songs in the wind, there was a young maiden who shone brighter than any other creature. Her name was Persephone. As the daughter of Demeter, the goddess of agriculture and the harvest, Persephone inherited all the pure beauty and boundless vitality from her mother. Her hair shimmered like the morning sun. Her eyes were as deep and clear as the sky, and wherever she walked, grass sprouted and flowers bloomed. Persephone grew up under the absolute love of Demeter. She protected her from all dangers, from the world's sorrows. To Demeter, Persephone was not just her daughter. She was the very embodiment of the joy of life, the center of the little universe she had created. Every day, Persephone roamed the endless fields, filled with the fragrance of flowers and sunlight. She laughed and played with the flower nymphs, listened to the song of the streams, and occasionally weaved delicate wildflower crowns to adorn her hair. These scenes were so beautiful that even the gods on Mount Olympus turned their gaze downward, and then no one expected that her innocent purity would attract the attention of a being from the deepest depths. Hades, the lord of the underworld. Hades, who ruled the cold, lonely world of the dead, had often gazed upward at the world of life, but it was only when he saw Persephone that his heart, which had seemed dead for so long, first stirred. A strange emotion, half obsession, half desire to possess, began to grow in Hades' heart. He knew that the girl, the light, would never willingly step into his dark world, but his desire was too strong. Hades decided that, no matter the cost, he would have her. Meanwhile, Persephone remained as innocent as ever, unaware that her fate was about to change. One sunny morning, she played with her friends in the valley of Nysa, a secluded place full of fragrant flowers and rare herbs that Demeter had chosen to keep her safe from harm. As she bent down to pick a bright yellow daffodil, her favorite flower, the earth suddenly shook. A massive crack opened in the field. From deep within the earth, a black chariot, pulled by fiery horses, shot upwards. On that chariot was Hades, his eyes as deep as a chasm, and a dark crown upon his head, rushing straight toward Persephone. Before she could scream, before her friends could reach her, Hades had grabbed her, pulled her into the chariot, and vanished into the earth, leaving behind a ripped sky and fallen flowers scattered over the cracked ground. Persephone was gone in an instant. The fields fell silent, the wind stopped blowing, and the flowers ceased to bloom. A new era began, the era of loss, of the bitter cold winter, all because of a love born from the deepest shadows. But that was just the beginning of an immortal and tragic romance. Everything happened so fast. One moment, Persephone stood in the golden sunlight of the field. The next, she was dragged into a black chariot. Racing downward into the depths of the earth, the ground closed behind her, as if nothing had ever happened. The light was swallowed, and darkness began. Persephone struggled in desperation, but her strength could not fight against a god. The cold wind lashed her face, and the sound of ghostly hooves echoed through the tunnels as they took her further away from the world she knew. When the chariot finally stopped, Persephone looked around. There was no blue sky, no grass or flowers, only cold barren rocks and dim light from the rivers of death. There were no birds singing, only the faint sighs of lost souls. Before her stood the kingdom of Hades, the Underworld, the realm where all souls must come after death. A dark, somber, and heavy world, completely opposite to the bright world Persephone had once known. Hades stepped down from the chariot. He extended his hand, a strangely gentle gesture in the midst of such death. Persephone, trembling, stepped back. She didn't understand why she was there, nor what awaited her. But Hades did not react with anger. Instead, his eyes that seemed to know only darkness, now carried something soft, almost pleading. "Do not be afraid," he said, his voice deep and warm, more an invitation than a command. "This will be your new home. You will be the queen of this realm beside me." Persephone was stunned. A queen? She had never considered being the wife of a god, let alone ruling a world of the dead. Fear, anger, and deep sadness swelled within her. She missed her mother, missed the days spent under the sun, missed the scent of wildflowers, missed the murmurs of the streams. But there was no way back. Hades, sensing the horror in her eyes, did not imprison Persephone like a prisoner. Instead, he allowed her to roam freely within his gloomy palace, through endless hallways lit only by faint torches. Day by day, Persephone began to realize that even though the underworld was cold, there were still quiet corners, hidden gardens where strange flowers grew in the dark, still black lakes like mirrors, and kind souls who came to her for comfort. And above all, Persephone began to see a different side of Hades, not just the cruel lord of death, as the rumors said, but a lonely being, desperate for love like any other creature. Still, she could not stop missing home. Persephone often stood by the river Styx, gazing up at the grey sky, silently calling out her mother's name, and above, in the world, above, Demeter, her mother, heard. Demeter searched frantically for her daughter everywhere. She wandered through every forest, every field, asking every stream and every mountain, but it was in vain. No one knew where Persephone was. In her despair, Demeter cursed the earth. She halted the seeds from sprouting, made the plants wither, the rivers dry up, and the sky darken. People starved. Disaster spread across the world. The gods on Mount Olympus, seeing the world about to perish, gathered in panic. Zeus, the king of the gods, knew that life could not be allowed to fade away due to a single separation. He sent Hermes, the swiftest messenger god, down to the underworld with a command. Hades must return Persephone to the mortal world. Hermes sped through the darkness like a flash of light, reaching Hades' throne and delivering Zeus's order. Hades was silent. He knew that if Persephone left, his kingdom would be colder than ever. But he also understood that true love cannot be forced. With a heavy heart, Hades agreed. Persephone would return. But just before that, a small, seemingly harmless event would forever change her fate: the pomegranate seed. When Persephone vanished from the mortal world, a shadow began to fall over the heart of Demeter. She, once a radiant goddess who brought bounty to humanity, had become a wanderer, madly screaming in the barren fields. No leaves were green, no crops grew, the earth cracked, and harvests failed. People suffered, praying, but all was in vain, for the goddess of the harvest now only lived in the painful memory of her daughter. Demeter did not eat, sleep, or care for Olympus, or any advice from the gods. She wandered the earth like a ghost, each step bringing hunger, cold, and death. When the gods realized that no one but Persephone could ease Demeter's pain, they had no choice but to act. Zeus, who had once remained silent in the face of Hades' actions, could no longer turn a blind eye. He summoned Hermes, the swiftest and wisest of gods, and sent him down to the underworld to negotiate. Hermes flew across the sky, through the earth, and arrived before Hades' throne. He demanded that Persephone be returned, for if not, the whole world would perish, and even Hades' kingdom would be drowned in utter darkness. Hades' heart was torn. Persephone, the only light that ever warmed his soul, was now leaving. But he also understood that true love is not about confinement. It is about allowing the one you love to be free. He agreed to let Persephone leave, but before she did, with what seemed like an innocent invitation, he led her to the dining room. On the table was only one thing: a ripe red pomegranate, sweet and tempting. Persephone, weak from being away from home and emotional about returning, did not know the harsh rule of the underworld. Whoever eats anything in the realm of the dead will belong there forever, and so she ate 6 pomegranate seeds, 6 small seeds, but they unknowingly sealed her fate. When Persephone stepped out of the underworld, for the first time in many months, the earth felt her steps again. Flowers began to bud, trees rustled with the new winds, and Demeter's heart nearly burst with joy. She ran to embrace her daughter, tears falling and soaking into the earth, causing nature to come back to life. But then, the joy of reunion was quickly overshadowed by a harsh truth. When the gods discovered that Persephone had eaten the pomegranate seeds, they could not turn a blind eye. By divine law, she had to return to the underworld for a certain period each year, corresponding to the number of seeds she ate. 6 months. Olympus fell silent. Demeter screamed in despair, and Persephone bowed her head to accept her fate. And so, a new agreement was made, the Pact of the 4 Seasons. Each year, Persephone would live 6 months with her mother, in the light, spring and summer, when trees sprouted, flowers bloomed, and the harvest flourished. But for the other 6 months, she would return to the underworld, living with Hades, and the world would fall into the cold autumn, followed by the withering winter. Persephone, once an innocent maiden, became the symbol of cycles, life, death, and rebirth. She was the goddess of the harvest, the queen of the underworld, and above all, proof that love, pain, and sacrifice are always intertwined in every timeless myth. From that day on, an endless cycle began. The cycle of light and darkness, of growth and decay, linked to Persephone's footsteps. When she returned to her mother, Demeter joyfully spread flowers across the earth. Trees bloomed, wheat turned golden, and birds chirped in the forest. Spring blossomed, followed by a vibrant summer. But when 6 months passed, and Persephone had to return to the underworld, Demeter's heart tightened again. She withdrew into a deep sorrow, The earth became barren. The leaves turned yellow and fell. The cold wind began to blow, and a frosty mist slowly covered everything. Autumn arrived quietly, followed by a long, cold winter, like a sorrow etched deep into the land. Humanity, from the earliest inhabitants, began to recognize this strange change. They no longer lived in eternal prosperity, but had to learn to face the harsh cycles of nature. The myth of Persephone is not just the story of a girl kidnapped. It is the first explanation for the endless cycle of seasons. And deeper still, a lesson in acceptance. Demeter, though a powerful goddess, could not keep her daughter with her forever. She learned to accept the natural law, separation, loss, and the fleeting happiness before having to part once again. Persephone, from an innocent girl, became a symbol of inner strength. She was no longer a victim of fate, but a goddess of two worlds, one representing life and growth, the other holding power in the underworld. And Hades, once seen as cruel, was now viewed in a different light. He was not only the lord of death, but also a lover in his own way. Not clinging, not forcing, but allowing Persephone to choose her own path. Their story became a mirror, reflecting the human heart. That love is not possession. That pain is not an end, but the beginning of a new life cycle. Each year, when Persephone steps out of the underworld, she brings with her the warmth of hope. Her return is a reminder that even after the harshest winters, spring will come. That even after loss, pain will blossom into strength. From then on, every year when the winter winds begin to blow cold, people tell each other the story of Persephone, the girl who walked through the darkness, who learned to love even the sorrow in her heart. And every spring, when the first flowers gently bloom under the sunlight, they smile, knowing that Persephone has returned and that life continues. Despite all the harshest trials, Persephone, goddess of the harvest, queen of the underworld, and an eternal symbol in the hearts of those who know hope, who know love, who know loss, but never give up. Her journey is the journey of all of us. Journey through pain, darkness, and growth, to rise again into the light, stronger, more beautiful, and deeper than ever before. Persephone, the girl who once trembled as she entered the underworld, has now become an immortal symbol of strength and rebirth. Her journey is not just an ancient myth, but a mirror reflecting each of us. Because, in life, who hasn't experienced the coldest winters? Those moments when we lose something precious. Those times we find ourselves lost in the darkest despair. But like Persephone, we can all learn to walk through pain, to accept it as a necessary part of life, and to find a new spring within our own hearts. The story of Persephone reminds us there is no winter that lasts forever. After the harshest, cold, flowers will still bloom. After every fall, we can rise again, stronger, gentler, and deeper. Demeter learned to accept separation. Hades learned to love by letting go. And Persephone, she learned to be the bridge between two worlds. Light and darkness, life and death, hope and sorrow. When you see the bare branches in winter, remember that life is simply lying still, waiting for the day to bloom brilliantly. When your heart is cold from loss, trust that a spring is quietly coming, deep within your soul. Persephone does not only return to her mother each year, she returns in every blooming bud, every first ray of sunshine, every smile rediscovered after days of tears. And within each of us, there is a Persephone quietly growing, a part of the soul that knows how to overcome darkness, how to embrace the light, and never give up hope. No matter how many winters pass, we will always find our own spring. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch the video. If you found the video helpful and interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any future videos. Wishing you a wonderful day, and see you in the next video.